Thanksgiving is perhaps the most important tradition that gathers family and friends every year in the United States, regardless of cultural backgrounds and religions. While many cultures have celebrated the end of the harvest season in different ways through centuries and even millennia, and even when some of these celebrations involve demonstrations of gratitude, there are two countries that use the same Thanksgiving name for this particular important end of harvest season celebration: Canada and the United States of America. Are these two celebrations the same? Do they happen at the same time? Did both traditions originate the same year and because of the same reason? This video is part of the Versus series, where we compare and contrast concepts, ideas, and practically everything that seems similar in any way. Versus is a Latin word that means against, but in this case we are not using it as in confrontation. We use it to find the things that the ideas we are comparing have in common, and also to identify their differences by contrasting them. This time, we are comparing and contrasting two traditions that apparently are almost the same. But are they? Let's identify what both traditions have in common. That is comparing. Both traditions have the same name, Thanksgiving, and at some point coincided in the main purpose, which was to give thanks to God for good crops and bountiful harvests. Families and friends get together for a feast, and many watch American football games. In Canada, the Canadian Football League, and in the USA, the National Football League and high school's Turkey Day games, also called Turkey Bowl. There is a parade on Thanksgiving Day in both countries. However, the Canadian one is not as big as the American one, and the focus is slightly different. Both Thanksgiving dinners include turkey and pumpkin pie, but we will look at some differences in the menu and ingredients when we contrast in the next segment. Before we proceed identifying the differences between Thanksgiving in Canada and in the United States, let's point out that the many indigenous peoples that inhabited what we now know as North America had been demonstrating gratitude in different ways and for several reasons long before the Europeans arrived to their lands. So, the idea of Thanksgiving Day as a celebration derives from the experience of survival by Europeans in the territories we now know as Canada and the United States of America. Let's identify now the differences between the ways the Canadians and the Americans in the United States celebrate Thanksgiving. That is contrasting. Canada celebrates Thanksgiving Day on the second Monday in October, which means that they have a 3-day weekend. On the other hand, the United States celebrates Thanksgiving on the fourth Thursday in November. In Canada, Thanksgiving Day is optional in some regions, so some people do not have the day off. In the United States, many businesses close or open only half a day on Thanksgiving Day, and this is observed nationwide. So, many people in the United States have off Thursday and Friday, and some even take off the whole week. Canadians consider that the first Thanksgiving celebration was held in 1578, when the English explorer Sir Martin Frobisher and his crew gathered to give thanks to God for arriving safely to the New World in the now Canadian Arctic region called Nunavut. They celebrated with a meal including salted beef, biscuits, and mushy peas. In the following centuries, French and Scottish settlers followed an end-of-harvest tradition to thank God for successful and plentiful harvests. 43 years after the celebration in Nunavut, sometime in October of 1621, there was a 3-day feast between the Wampanoag people and the European pilgrims in the Plymouth settlement in what we now know as Massachusetts, to give thanks to God for a bountiful harvest. The pilgrims were also thankful to the Wampanoag people for teaching them how to grow crops successfully and fish in the regions. This is what Americans in the United States refer to as the first Thanksgiving celebration. Thanksgiving became a popular and formalized tradition in Canada on November 6, 1879, but there was no specific day stated to celebrate it until the Governor-General of Canada, Vincent Massey, proclaimed it an official national celebration on January 31, 1957. Settling the second Monday in October as the official Thanksgiving Day to align it with the end of the harvest season before the temperatures get freezing cold in those latitudes. In the United States, Presidents George Washington and James Madison had issued proclamations for Thanksgiving calling for somber days of prayer, but they were not successful. President Abraham Lincoln also proclaimed on October 3, 1863, that the last Thursday in November should be a national day of Thanksgiving as an attempt to calm down the tension during the Civil War, but the country was in so much conflict that the idea did not solidify. It was not until December 26, 1941, when President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed a bill into law marking the fourth Thursday in November as a national holiday for Thanksgiving. There is a Thanksgiving parade in Canada organized by the company Kitchener-Waterloo, but it is primarily focused on Oktoberfest, which celebrates German heritage and identity. The Macy's Thanksgiving Parade in New York City includes gigantic balloons featuring typical Thanksgiving icons such as turkeys and pilgrims wearing black hats and buckles, but the main focus is to officially start the winter holiday shopping season, which includes characters from popular movies and even Santa Claus. Talking about shopping, the Friday after Thanksgiving in the United States is called Black Friday, which makes reference to special sales to help businesses make good profits and remain out of the red numbers. Given the popularity of online shopping nowadays, the following Monday is also full of specials for online shoppers, and it's called Cyber Monday. Canada is not too much into this shopping spree, although little by little this tradition is becoming more popular and more Canadian businesses are emulating this trend every year. There are some differences in the food choices for the Thanksgiving feast between Canada and the United States. The Canadian pumpkin pie has generous amounts of ginger, nutmeg, cloves, and cinnamon, which makes it quite spicy. Also, the regions in the Canadian prairies prefer apple pie instead. The pumpkin pie in the United States is sweeter and it's made with custard. The stuffing for the turkey in Canada is made with rice and breadcrumbs, while the one in the United States is cornbread based. Some versions in the New England states also include oysters. There are some other meal preferences in the different regions in Canada. For example, in Newfoundland, people have corned beef, root vegetables, and pea pudding. In Ontario, buttered tarts are the typical dessert. In general, Canadians have wheat bread rolls, while cornbread is the staple in the United States. While Thanksgiving Day in Canada is on a Monday, families decide when to have their feast during the weekend. In the United States, the Thanksgiving feast is always on a Thursday. This gives more days to continue enjoying the leftovers and recuperate from the food coma. Ultimately, Thanksgiving in Canada is not as a big deal as Thanksgiving in the United States. However, these traditions should serve as reminders for us to be grateful for what we have, especially before the typical annual overindulgence, don't you think? There, we have compared and contrasted Thanksgiving Day in Canada with Thanksgiving Day in the United States of America. If you think this has been a good this versus that exploration, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel, it's free. Share this video in your social networks, check our other playlists, and let us know in the comments what else you would like to see in Oskivision. Thank you for watching.